Hi and welcome everyone to the course Evolutionary Dynamics. My name is Supreet Saini and I work in the Chemical Engineering Department at Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay. What is that? I want to spend a couple of minutes talking about what this course is all about. Our planet Earth is about 4.5 billion years old, and the first evidence of life that we have comes from about 3.8 billion years ago from some rock samples that were collected in parts of Greenland. What these suggest to us that the most primitive life forms that evolved on Earth were bacteria and archaea. These life forms flourished for billions of years, and somewhere around 2 billion years ago, a fusion event happened where an archaea engulfed a bacterial cell in an endosymbiosis event, leading to the first eukaryotic cell, which formed the ancestor to all complex life forms as we know on Earth. From there on, complexity evolved, leading to various phases of life, leading up to somewhere around 600 million years ago on Earth, which is called the Cambrian era of evolution, where eukaryotic life flourished and we had complex life forms evolved. 65 million years ago was the next landmark event in the life of life on Earth, where meteorites wiped out dinosaurs from the planet. And that wiping out event provided fresh breeding ground for new species to evolve, and human beings enter this picture very late in this entire scheme of things of evolution. The theory of evolution, as we understand it, comes from primarily Charles Darwin and Alfred Russel Wallace in the middle of 19th century. And of course, we all know the story of Darwin going on his famous ship trip HMS Beagle, which lasted about 5 years, where he went around the world collecting samples and eventually coming on to what is called the theory of natural selection. And what essentially this theory of natural selection is telling us is that if there is an environment in which different individuals exist and there are minor differences between each individual, that's the concept of variation, that all individuals in a population of a particular species are not alike and there are minor differences between individuals. Then those individuals which are best adapted to survive and grow in that particular environment are going to take over the environment, and those which are not that well adapted to survive in that environment, and if the environment happens to be overcrowded with individuals, are going to be eliminated by natural selection. That gave us the famous theory of natural selection as we understand it. What we are going to talk about in this course is how do we understand the process of this evolution, what we are calling evolutionary dynamics, from the context of a microbial population, and try and see if we can discover some basic underlying fundamental mathematical frameworks which help us analyze in some sense the processes related to evolution. So in that sense, this is going to be a very basic introduction to evolutionary dynamics, hoping to equip you with tools which enable you to understand processes of evolution in a microbial population in a quantitative manner. So this course is most well suited for senior students in biology who are in their 4th year undergraduate or master students in biology who are interested in equipping themselves with quantitative skill set to understand evolutionary dynamics of microbial populations. The course is also meant for students who come from physical sciences or engineering backgrounds who are interested in understanding life forms and particularly evolution. What I'll be spending the next 20 hours or so in the duration of this course is first developing a mathematical framework where we understand and quantify the 3 tenets related to evolution, which are reproduction, mutation, and selection. These 3 form the essential ingredients of any evolutionary process. We'll then spend some time talking about sequence spaces and the concept of fitness landscapes, which is very important in the framework that we have in our mind when we see populations evolving towards higher fitnesses, higher growth rates in a given environment. From there on, we will move to a very important concept called genetic drift, which tells us about how random events during an evolutionary process shape the dynamics of a species, eventually deciding where does that species or which particular form or growth rate does a particular species end up with. So we'll discuss how do we quantify these chance events in a population which decide the fate of a population. We'll then develop some analytical relationships talking about how can we quantify speed of evolution in some sense when we're talking of microbial populations. Towards the end of the course, I'll briefly discuss the role of game theory in the context of evolution, which is studied in the field called evolutionary game theory, and discuss its application in a microbial context. And I'll end the course with a small example where we'll be studying how the evolution of the virus HIV interacts with the immune system inside a host, and how the interplay between these two factors, the virus and its continued adaptation and evolution on one hand, and the immune system of the host, how the interplay between these two factors decides the shape and the fate of the individual in terms of disease progression. So that just forms one representative example of where the tools that we'll be discussing through the next 20 hours or so can be applied to study quantitatively and come up with measurable predictions that can eventually lead us to studying disease progression and aspects related to that. So that's the outline of the course. So I hope many of you will have a very good time going through the course and enjoy the contents of the course. Most of the topics that we'll be discussing will be from a book by Martin Nowak. It's called Evolutionary Dynamics. And I hope it opens up a window of evolutionary dynamics and just gives you a glimpse of the many exciting things that we can do in this field of evolutionary microbiology. Thank you, and I look forward to having many of you in the course over the next 20 years.